Right-handed knitters worked row 1, the cast-on row, from right to left when looking at the chart. This row ended with turn, so we'll need to turn our work. Now we're working across the back to where we started. Knitrino brings us to the left-hand side because we're working above the 21st stitch. Once you've cast on your stitches, turn the needle around and hold it in your left hand. This is now referred to as your left needle. Hold the other needle in your right hand. This is now referred to as your working needle. Insert the working needle into the front of the first stitch from left to right. With the yarn from the ball, called the working yarn, wrap it under and over the right needle. We'll demonstrate with another color to make it easier to see what's happening. Draw the loop through the stitch and onto the right needle. Remove the stitch from the left needle. You can hold the yarn any way you choose right now. Insert the needle into the front of the first stitch from left to right. Wrap the yarn from back to front around the right needle. Draw the loop through the stitch and onto the right needle. Remove the stitch from the left needle. Left to right, under and over. Once you've cast on your stitches, turn the needle around and hold it in your left hand. Hold the other needle in your right hand. Insert the working needle into the front of the first stitch from left to right. With the yarn from the ball, wrap it under and over the right needle. draw the loop through the stitch and onto the right needle. Remove the stitch from the left needle. When you get to the last stitch, knit it the same way. Now you have worked all the stitches and have no stitches remaining on the needle. Turn the right needle around and hold it in your left hand. Let's mark that row complete. Notice that this row also ends with turn, and Knitrino brings us back to the right hand side for the next row. Here, we've switched back to knitting in just one color. Your swatch should look something like this. When knitting back and forth on every row like this, it makes a fabric where both sides look the same. This is called garter stitch. When working the knit stitch, the yarn should always be in back, behind our work, wrapping from back to front. One of the most common mistakes is accidentally bringing your yarn to the front and then knitting. When you do this, you'll accidentally add a stitch or an extra loop to your work. Here, we had 2 stitches on the needle, and we're working the 3rd. But you can see we now have added a stitch. We have 4 instead of 3 stitches on the needle. You can see that the extra stitch looks a little funny. It will create a hole in your work. Later, you can use that hole in helpful ways, but for now, we want to avoid it. So counting your stitches often is a good way to look out for these kinds of mistakes.